His lawyer produced the real will, the one that Marcus had drafted after deciding to stage his death. This will was very different from the one that had been read at the funeral. It left the bulk of the estate to charity, to the loyal employees who had helped build the business, and to the extended family members who had remained genuinely kind to Marcus over the years without expectation of reward. Each of his 3 children would receive exactly 1 million naira, enough to be comfortable but nowhere near enough to maintain their extravagant lifestyles. The rest, including the family business, would be placed in a trust managed by independent trustees, with profits going to educational scholarships for underprivileged children. Chidi exploded. He threatened lawsuits, screamed about how much he had sacrificed for the company, how he had dedicated his life to building the business alongside his father. Marcus listened quietly, then produced the evidence of Chidi's affair with the secretary, his firing of loyal employees, his attempts to steal control of the company before his father was even buried. Each revelation was a hammer blow. Chidi had no defense. He had been caught completely, his true nature exposed in a way that left no room for denial or justification. Adana tried a different approach. She appealed to emotion, claiming that she had only wanted to honor her father with a beautiful funeral, that she had been devastated by grief and perhaps had not behaved perfectly, but surely he could understand. Marcus showed her the recordings of her planning meetings, where she had laughed about how much money she could spend from the estate, where she had complained about having to pretend to be sad. He showed her the messages where she had spread lies about her brothers, trying to position herself as the favorite child. The evidence was damning and comprehensive. Her tears dried up quickly when she realized they would have no effect. Obinna, true to form, simply asked if there was any way to negotiate. Could he contest this new will? Could he argue that his father's staging of his own death proved mental incompetence? Marcus almost smiled at his youngest son's brazenness. At least Obinna was consistent. But the answer was no. The will was ironclad, drafted by the best lawyers money could buy, and most importantly, it was Marcus's right to dispose of his property as he saw fit. He was alive, he was competent, and he had made his decision. The weeks that followed were painful for everyone involved. The story leaked to the media, as Marcus had known it would. The news of the wealthy businessman who staged his own death to test his children became a national sensation. Some praised Marcus for his creativity in exposing his children's greed. Others criticized him for his deception, arguing that no parent should test their children in such a cruel manner. The family became a subject of public ridicule. Chidi lost his position in the business and his reputation in the industry. No one wanted to work with someone who had been so thoroughly exposed as disloyal and opportunistic. Adana's social standing crumbled as her friends, most of whom were equally shallow, distanced themselves from the scandal. Obinna disappeared for a while, only to resurface months later, apparently unchanged by the experience, still looking for the next easy opportunity. Marcus moved back into his mansion, but it felt emptier than ever. The servants who had been loyal to him remained, grateful for the provisions he had made for them in his will. But his children were gone. Chidi had moved to another city, too proud to face his father or the community that had witnessed his humiliation. Adana attempted reconciliation once, a carefully worded email that managed to be both an apology and a justification for her behavior. Marcus read it, felt nothing, and deleted it. Obinna never reached out at all, which was somehow the most honest response. The business thrived under new management. The trust Marcus established funded hundreds of scholarships, sending bright young students to universities they could never have afforded otherwise. Marcus involved himself in the charitable work, finding more satisfaction in helping strangers achieve their potential than he had ever found in building wealth for children who didn't appreciate it. He began mentoring young entrepreneurs, sharing the lessons he had learned over decades of business. Some of these young people became like family to him, visiting regularly, seeking his advice, genuinely caring about his well-being rather than his wealth. On his 75th birthday, Marcus sat in his study, the same room where he had begun this elaborate test, and reflected on what he had learned. The experiment had destroyed his relationship with his children, but perhaps that relationship had been illusory to begin with, built on money rather than love, on expectation rather than respect. He had discovered that blood alone does not make a family. Character does. Integrity does. genuine care and concern for others does. He had also learned that wealth could be both a blessing and a curse. It provided opportunities, but it also revealed the worst in people. His children had been corrupted not by poverty but by prosperity, by never having to struggle, never having to earn, never having to appreciate the value of what they had been given. He bore some responsibility for that. He had been too generous, too eager to give them everything he had never had, without realizing that the struggle itself had been what built his own character. The inheritance test had not given Marcus what he had hoped for. He had secretly wished that his children would prove him wrong, that they would show depth and character when faced with his death. Instead, they had proven every fear correct. But the test had given him something else: clarity. He knew now that the fortune he left behind would do more good in the hands of strangers than it ever would have in the hands of his children. He knew that legacy was not about bloodlines but about impact, not about what you left to your family but what you left for the world. Marcus's story spread far beyond his own city. It became a cautionary tale told in business schools and family gatherings. Parents used it to teach their children about gratitude and character. Young people used it to question their own relationships with family wealth. The tale sparked countless debates about inheritance, family obligations, and the price of prosperity. Some people condemned Marcus's methods, arguing that no parent should trick their children in such an elaborate way, that the test itself was a betrayal of trust. Others celebrated his decision, seeing it as a necessary revelation of truth, a way to strip away pretense and expose reality. But everyone agreed on one thing: the test had worked. Marcus Okonkwo had gotten exactly what he was looking for, even if what he found broke his heart. In the end, Marcus lived another decade, dying peacefully at the age of 82, surrounded not by his biological children but by the many young people he had mentored and supported over the years. His funeral, modest and genuine, was attended by hundreds who had been touched by his generosity, who had benefited from the scholarships and business opportunities his trust provided. It was a celebration of a life well lived, of money well spent, of a legacy that would endure not through bloodline but through impact. His children did not attend. They had moved on, nursing their grievances, perhaps forever bitter about what they saw as their father's betrayal. But Marcus, in his final days, expressed no regrets about the test. He had needed to know the truth, and the truth, however painful, had set him free. Free from the obligation of leaving his fortune to people who didn't deserve it. Free from the illusion that sharing blood meant sharing values. Free to ensure that everything he had built would be used to create opportunities for those who would appreciate them, who would work hard, who would pay it forward. The inheritance test had revealed shocking betrayals, exactly as Marcus had feared. But it had also revealed something else: that the truest inheritance any parent can leave is not money, but the example of how to live with integrity, purpose, and concern for others. Whether his children ever learned that lesson remained unclear. But countless others did, and perhaps that was the real inheritance Marcus Okonkwo left behind. Not millions in a bank account, but a story that would be told and retold, teaching each generation that character matters more than wealth, that integrity matters more than inheritance, and that the true measure of a life is not what you accumulate, but what you give away and to whom.